So can you share a bit about your project and the things that you do, because you
So,
are a wealth of information?
so I have many different things. So since 2013, I have been teaching a workshop that is targeted towards fitness instructors and physical therapists about exercise for common neurological symptoms. Originally, the course was Pilates for MS. It's now Pilates for neurological conditions, and it probably should be more aptly called Pilates-based stuff before, neurological conditions. And I talk about in my workshops MS, stroke, and Parkinson's disease. And then depending on who's taking the workshop, if they have questions about ALS or post-polio syndrome or any number of neurological diseases, we'll cover that in the course. But essentially we go through balance issues, spasticity, weakness, gait problems, bladder and bowel issues. And then we talk about neuroplasticity and how neuroplasticity plays a role in how we would design a program. So on top of that, I have multiple other workshops. They're all based in the world of neuroscience and exercise. So I have workshops on fear, on balance, on just individual workshops for Parkinson's disease and stroke, and then, the sensory motor system and like neuroscience 101. So I have all these workshops that are, some of them are online, some of them are taught in person. And then I have a business partner who is also a Pilates teacher, not an MS patient, who has a master's degree in applied physiology from Columbia. And she and I own the Neuro Studio together. So the Neuro Studio is our sort of umbrella company. And we have a subscription site of their workouts that are targeted towards the neurological community, and they're separated by symptoms, and they're also separated by disease processes and diseases, because Parkinson's is very different from multiple sclerosis, but multiple sclerosis is not that different from stroke. So we have a lot of similarities in the things we do. And going back to the Mariska loves like backing up her work and like things being, researched. The techniques that we teach in our online studio and what we teach to patients are actually in two different clinical trials right now. So they're in a clinical trial at University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, and another one at University of Illinois. So we actually have our methods being tested for effectiveness for MS patients. So the trials are actually for people with MS. And then I've taught, in terms of number of people who I've taught the Pilates for Neurological Conditions course over the years, I'm at about 1,500 people all over the world. So pre-COVID, I would travel once a month to different states, countries. I've taught in Europe, Middle East, taught it in Australia, Japan. So it's literally been all over the place. And then once, COVID happened and we started teaching kind of exclusively online, that sort of opened up to a lot more places that the course has been taught. So I teach it now about 3 times a year. And then my big COVID project, which was actually a project that I had started working on a really long time ago, was I wanted to create a single source of information for people with MS that would answer everything that I could think that people would need to know or should know. So that project ended up being the MS Master Plan, which is 27 hours of content with a 48-page bibliography, and it goes through everything. There's 6 chapters. There's, information about diagnosis. There's, in that chapter, it's like, I interviewed you for it because we talk about, race and multiple sclerosis. We talked in your story as well about meditation, yoga, things like that. We also talk about, all the different medications, how the different medications work. I don't go individually into every kind of medication because a lot of them are just, they fit into categories. So it's like, what category do they fit into in terms of how they work? I talk about symptoms, treatment for symptoms, whether that's medication-based or going to somebody like a physiatrist if you have pain. I did an entire huge section that's over 8 hours on movement. So it's everything from knowing if it's spasticity and if you have spasticity, what you can do about it, to, let's look at blood flow restriction training. Let's look at aqua therapy. Let's look at swimming. Let's look at Pilates and yoga and running and walking, and what the actual science is that backs up each of these things, and like what, it can say is helpful or not. I did a huge section on AFOs, which I am going to update because I've had 3 new AFOs since that time and I hate them all. So my hatred of AFOs has remained. I did sections on relationships, marriage, dating, like things to think about. I did like life with MS. I talked to disability lawyers. I talked to workplace rights attorneys that are both specialists in working with people with MS. And I just wanted to make sure that I was like really covering the breadth of what the disease is, and then different things that you could, come across in it, and then make it like, I am fairly confident in saying it is the largest single source of information for MS that exists. It's over 275 videos. So it's pretty easy to just go in and find exactly, what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then I show my work. So I have my huge bibliography of all the places that I found that information. I brought in over 30 patients to tell their stories and the things that worked for them or didn't work for them. And then I have a whole bunch of experts, whether they're medical experts, neurologists, physical therapists that work with MS, vision specialists, pelvic floor physical therapists, which work on bladder and bowel issues. I mean, we talk about literally everything, and try to get it all, like, what is the science behind it? And, and I definitely learned a ton. Like there was, one of the things I was most fascinated with learning was stuff that, I found a study, but I think it was by World Health Organization or one of those big organizations, maybe it was Consortium of MS Centers. And it was just talking about what people with MS do as therapies that are outside of medication. So it was talking about like chiropractic was one of the big ones. Hyperbaric oxygen was one of the big ones. And I never had tried hyperbaric oxygen. And that was always one that I wanted to try. And I looked into it, read all the studies on it. Well, not all the studies because it's impossible to read all the studies, but there's basically no evidence that it works. There was one study that showed 15 people, because there's a problem with a lot of these studies on things like that. They have like nobody in them. So there was a study of like 15 people, 12 of them had improvements with hyperbaric oxygen. That study was done in the 80s and has never been replicated, to the point where doctors who use hyperbaric oxygen do not recommend it for MS, because there's actually not the evidence supporting its use, and it's ridiculously expensive. And I know people with MS who bought hyperbaric oxygen machines, because they think they read articles that are all based on this 1980 article of 12 people, and it's like, that should not happen. That should not be the information that is out there, that it's so misleading. And, MS is expensive on its own. I've spent God knows how much money. I mean, I've easily spent 6 figures on doing treatments and things outside of like the typical, what's covered or not covered enough by insurance. And then, going beyond that, I wanted to make sure I covered like a lot of the hacks that I learned and other people learned. Like, I'm currently dealing with the fun of having my $78,000 MS medication be denied multiple times by my insurance company. And I finally got them sorted. And now the copay program doesn't like the form that they got. So, talking about how to deal with like insurance companies and insurance hacks and like how to get on the good drugs because a lot of times if you're newly diagnosed, they don't want to give them to you. So it's like literally like, if you're traveling, this is ways to make it easier. I just wanted to get everything in one spot. And the way it's formatted, it's actually really easy to update, because the thing with MS research is there's always going to be new stuff. Like when I talked about the shockwave therapy for spasticity, that was not something I included in the workshop because it was just something I recently discovered. So I'll add that, in. It's very easy when you have something formatted that way to just do one other little video and drop it into the whole system.
Oh my gosh, you have so much information, and everybody needs to know and needs to know you because you're, like I said, a wealth of information. I mean, this is like, it's almost like a dream come true for a person who's just been diagnosed, because when I was diagnosed, when you were diagnosed, there weren't, I shouldn't say there weren't resources, there were, but at your fingertips, the way that you have provided things for, information for other MSers and people who are caregivers or people who are loved ones of people who have MS. Like, this is it's a big deal. And in order for you to learn about what you have and how to manage, how to understand your symptoms, you need to research. And I'm so glad that you're here and like offering this. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, people pay.
Yeah, sadly, it's not free, but I do give away so much free information. So we have, the Neuro Studio has like a private Facebook group, and we answer questions in it. So if people come in and they have questions, we go into them in there. I do lots of clips and stuff from my workshop that I post online, so I have to make a living, and I'm one of those people who changed my career, not right away after being diagnosed with MS, but, after living with MS for a while, I went from being a video producer and living in that world, which is very high stress, to living in a different kind of stress type world. So this is what I do for a living is, I design information and provide information, but there's the way the workshop works is like, you can buy parts, you can buy it in total, and we can give, a discount code that we can put in like the notes to get a pretty hefty discount off of the workshop. But again, you can buy it in pieces. And I always say I give away a lot of free information too, because I do want to help people not make the same mistakes that I made.
Exactly. So how can people find you? Where can people find you?
So probably the easiest thing is to, you can just find me by just looking up my name. So you can find my stuff on Instagram. Instagram's going to be a lot of me doing Pilates. And then on Mondays, I post MS related content. The Neuro Studio is where we provide a lot of free content. So that's Instagram and Facebook. There's a Facebook private group called Pilates for Neurological Conditions. We don't, basically anyone who asks to join gets in. It's not like we have an application process or anything. We do have where we review the posts before they go in, because it's actually a lot of people are trying to sell stuff. And we have a very strict, you're not selling stuff policy. Because I am pretty well known in the Pilates world, I get asked to promote all these different products all the time. And the last one I got asked to promote, which was like just yesterday, was this natural deodorant that had like some sort of mood boosting supplement to it. And I was just like, so I have a very, very strict policy where I don't endorse any brands of, or, any supplements or brands or whatever, I just provide information, and I'm not going to say, do this or don't do that. And I'm like, and a mood altering natural deodorant, I'm like, I think that fits into that. So I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't like help you with that. I get a lot of stuff with CBD stuff, and I'm just like, well, actually, CBD salesperson. One of the people that I have a very extensive interview with is a nurse who is a specialist in cannabis medication, and CBD only products are actually not particularly effective for most MS symptoms. You actually need the THC as well. So I was like, so I will not, endorse any CBD product because the science doesn't back that. I know a lot of people will say that they have benefit from CBD only products, but I'm like, but the science doesn't disagree with that, because it's like CBD can be helpful with like relaxing muscles, but in terms of like true muscle spasticity, the science goes to it has to be a combination. So I don't want to ever put my name on anything that I can't back up with knowing what the science behind it is. So basically what I'm saying is if people are trying to sell stuff on my groups, I don't let them, because I try to sell my own stuff, obviously, because of my group, but I don't let people come in with, random
like, hey, I'm selling this
stuff. Right. And then if they
to help
post it,
with
because we do have sometimes people post it in the comments, because that's sort of the way to get around in private groups, then we kick them out of the group. So we have a zero tolerance for people trying to go after like people who have neurological conditions, because it's like we have enough of that in our life. We don't need more of it.
People are like vultures, aren't they? Like,
there's total
this is
vultures.
a vulnerable community. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And you will be coming back on, because I want to dive more into like the science of so much, like neuroplasticity. I would love for you to come back and like we talk about that.
It's one of my favorite topics. It's so interesting.
Yeah, so that's going to be like a part 3 or 4, because then I want to talk about like muscle and the connection and like, this is like so fascinating to me. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. And I look forward to next time.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much.